Hey people on YouTube land, Zach Hall back here with a quick Bible update. A couple people had a couple questions about how the 120 takes writing in the margins, and is it a good margin width? Is the paper thick? And then someone asked specifically to compare it to the Bearing Precious Seed wide margin. So that's what I'm going to be doing here in this hopefully short video. But to answer the question about is the inner margin good, I'll turn to Psalm 1 here because that's where I was doing some studying for a kind of a teaching at church. So you can see here is Psalm 1, and I made a lot of use of the inside gutter there, and it worked really well. For cross references, I would have to say this Bible would be an A+ for the inner margin, definitely. I can write it all there next to the verses, no problem. I wrote some stuff over here, and the bleed through is really not that bad. It's going to show up worse on camera, but to the naked eye, this is really not bad at all. This paper is super thick, so you don't have to worry about it bleeding through, and it didn't bleed through, so there's nothing on the other side there. But very good paper. Cross references are pretty easy to write there in the margin. Now I'll go to John, because that's the other place where I was studying, and I did write a note in here. So this is a little bit tougher because of the excuse me, a little sick guy, sorry about that. Because of the margin space, this was a little bit tougher. But you can see I wrote probably a sentence and a half there, and a reference as well. And it took up about 2 verses there, but that's because it's the 2 verses I was teaching on, so that was okay with me. So as far as writing extensive notes in that margin, probably not going to be the best. I mean, I probably would give it, if I could grade it from an A to F scale, I'll probably get like a C. You're just not going to be able to write a lot of notes in there. Now, you can write probably a sentence, a quick bullet point. If you are a pastor or a teacher, you could write maybe if you do like a bullet outline, you could do bullets next to the text, and absolutely that might work. But mainly I would think cross-references are going to work in there, and see, again, I wrote cross-references here, and they work just fine. You guys can see the bleed-through on the other side. So it's really not bad as far as the bleed-through perspective. But let me compare this to the Bearing Precious Seed wide margin for that one brother. So here we go. Try to get these pages next to each other. So you can just see that the Bearing Precious Seed has a lot more margin room. And granted, it is a slightly bigger Bible as well. Now, the margin for the CBP is going to be a little bit wider out here than in the Bearing Precious Seed. This is about 1 inch in the Bearing Precious Seed. And this is actually just a little bit slightly bigger, or it appears that way. They might be the same exact margin width. But in the gutter, this is 1 inch in the gutter. This is going to be 1.5 inches for you there in the margin. And then on the bottom here, you're going to have 2 inches of margin space, and at the top, you're going to have 2 inches of margin space there as well. And in the CBP, it's going to be 1 inch at the bottom here and 1 inch at the top. So as far as margin space goes, you're going to definitely have more here in the Bearing Precious Seed edition. But let me go to, I believe it's Timothy, or no, actually it's John in this book, or in this Bible. I wrote a pretty large amount of notes in John. So you can see, I mean, comparatively speaking here, okay, you can take a lot of notes in that Bearing Precious Seed. And I wrote a big paragraph up there as well. So comparatively speaking to, that margin, you're talking about the top margin, and the Bearing Precious Seed is probably 1 inch bigger. Again, the outer margin's about the same, but the bottom margin's going to be about 1 inch bigger as well. So, I mean, honestly, even the Bearing Precious Seed probably has more room than the note takers to take notes in it with how big the margins are. And so you can see, I mean, just forget sentences, guys. Like, I'm writing a paragraph there for crying out loud. And then here, even next to the verses, I can write a lot of stuff in the margin, sentences worth of stuff. Here I wrote actually part of a commentary that I really liked how that commentator put it, so I put that in there as well. The only problem, and again on camera this might not pick it up, you can actually no you can. The bleed through is a lot worse, so you can actually see that's actually coming through the other side of the page, but it does not, it's ghosting. It doesn't bleed through though. So there's no dots over here from writing. However, I use a very thin-tipped micron pen, and I think that needs to be said because if you use a thicker micron pen, it's definitely going to bleed through. If you use an 05 on the bearing pressure seat, it's going to bleed through. If you use an 01, it depends how hard you press on the paper. An 005, though, is probably the best to use in the bearing pressure seat wide margin. And I got this one specifically for taking notes, and it's definitely gone towards that purpose. And I would say it's definitely easier to write in that margin just because it is a lot bigger. So you have 1.5 inches there, which is just a lot of room to write. And then I'll show you in Genesis as well, brother. I took some notes there. And I wrote pretty much a whole introduction. So you can see that you can write a lot of stuff in these margins. And so again, I'll turn to Genesis in this Bible here and give you a comparison. So if what you're going for is just margin space, the bearing pressure seed wins every time, guys. This Bible even has better margins than the Cambridge Concord. And it's like, oh, I know, right? You can't say that. Cambridge is perfect. Now, Cambridge's paper is going to kill the bearing pressure seeds paper. Like, Cambridge paper is, it's in a class by its own. However, this is not terrible paper, guys. It's decent. And especially for note-taking, like I said, as long as you have the right pens and stuff, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'll give you a lifetime of use. And if you just want the margin space, text only, I mean, really, you can't go wrong with the bearing pressure seed. It just has so much room to write. The text is very clear. It's not cluttered. There's not a lot of things in here. There are no maps in the back in the bearing pressure seed. That's kind of a key thing to look at. There are about 20 blank pages here in the back for you to write notes and everything. So you can see you have all that paper there that's blank to write on. And then you have a couple of card stocks to write on too. Here you're not going to have anything to write on in the back. Okay, so there's 2 pages for notes, but let's be honest, you're probably not going to use them for notes unless you're, I mean you could, not saying you wouldn't. So you got, technically 2 whole pages, 4 half pages to take notes there, but you could probably fill those up pretty quick. They do have good maps though, so if you're a person who likes maps, that's something to take in consideration there. Of course, this is calfskin leather, but of course Church Bible Publishers has that where you can do the goatskin binding with it now, if that's something you want to look into in the Build a Bible program. This has 2 ribbons. It has art gilding, if that's something you like, brother. The bearing pressure seat also is going to have 2 ribbons for you, but no art gilding, just plain gold on the side. So it does have the regular gilding, so you can see there, pretty good job on it. And then Church Bible Publishers will have that art gilt with the gold as well. The cover for the bearing pressure seat is going to be French Morocco, but this is not like the Cambridge French Morocco. This is a very good quality leather here. You can see it's even imitation leather lined, so it is an edge-line Bible. It'll just last as long as the Church Bible Publishers Bible would. It's all really a preference of what type of cover do you like. This is a little bit tougher. Not as flexible, but still very, very flexible. It can take a beating. It's stitched around the perimeter, as you can see there. This one is too. But this is iron calfskin. This is French Morocco. The CBP is going to be slightly smaller. Excuse me. So you can see the bearing pressure seat is just slightly wider, but it's about a 1/2 inch taller. But, saying that, the bearing pressure seat is definitely thinner. So, I honestly classify the bearing pressure seat as like a thin line, wide margin Bible. The CBP is going to be a little bit chubbier for you. But I hope that helps, guys. The note quality in the CBP is very outstanding. It is really good. Like I showed you, it's very easy to write notes in there. The inner gutter is sometimes hard to get to, but writing notes here is no problem at all. And the paper is super thick. Like Brother Brian McClurk said, it's probably about as thick as the Cambridge wide margin paper. And I would agree with that. It's a very thick paper. Writing in the margin is a little bit tough, but again, it's doable. I don't know if you're going to be able to put extensive notes in there. So if you're looking for a Bible where you can put your own cross-references and maybe a couple bullet points or bullet points around the text and maybe write more extensive notes at the bottom or the side, this would be the Bible for you, brother. But if you're looking to like take notes, and I mean notes, you can see, but definitely a Bearing Precious Seed has the ability to do that for you. So I hope this video is a blessing. It was just a quick update. The paper is very good in the CBP. It takes Pigma Micron really well. Again, I use a 005, which is one of the thinnest. And I've used an 01 in this as well, and the 01 works perfectly fine as well. You can use thicker pens on this because of the paper quality. It's a lot thicker. And actually, let me see here. I think it was in Ephesians. I did use a thicker micron pen, so let me check there for you. Yeah, so that's an this is a 01, and you can see it definitely goes through more, but it doesn't bleed through. And then on this side, that's where I wrote the reference. So again, I hope that was helpful for you, brother, and try to get this video up as fast as I possibly could for you. And I just hope it's a blessing to you guys as well, that if you're considering this Bible, the paper is amazing to write on. If you're someone who loves to take notes, just keep in mind the inner margin's a little bit tougher to use. But if you're okay with that and you can deal with it, I love this Bible a lot. And price comparison, I'll give that to you too, brother, even though you probably have already looked it up. So the CBP is going to be $65 for the iron calfskin. The French Moroccan Bearing Precious Seed will be $50. And of course, shipping is going to factor into this. Bearing Precious Seed only uses media mail, so it's about $5 for shipping. So that puts us at $55 roughly for the total. Church Bible Publisher is going to be around $16, $17 for shipping. So something to keep into consideration there. But hope you guys have a great day, okay? Hope this video was a blessing to you, and hopefully have more coming later in the week. Take care and God bless.